a shocking set of developments, the most popular candidate for the US presidential race, Donald Trump, has been banned by the Colorado Supreme Court for taking part in the Colorado primary polls. He has been charged with the crime of the 2021 insurrection, instigating people to attack Capitol Hill. Trump has in turn accused the Democrat Joe Biden of conspiring a hit job on him with a financial aid from George Soros. This raises several uneasy questions about the state of democracy, or rather lack of it, in the so-called oldest democracy of the world, the United States of America. While the world, including the US, often chastises the Indian government of its quote-unquote autocratic governance, the Biden administration has tried to completely wipe out its biggest rival, Donald Trump, in the run-up to the US presidential polls. The US comes across as a banana republic and a rather malicious no-holds-barred campaign against Donald Trump by the Democrats, who are generously funded by the US oligarch George Soros. The West leaves no opportunity to attack India, be it the farmers' protest or Rahul Gandhi's expulsion from the parliament or the latest case of the 141 MPs that have been suspended. But the joke today is on the United States of America government for stooping to a new law to remove your most potent adversary in a bid to win the presidential election and come back to power. I start my conversation, and my first response that I would seek is from Rubinder Sachdev. Rubinder, what a mockery of a democracy that we see in America, who is always put at the first number, numero uno, when these democracy indices are released, which by the way are also from European or North American countries. Now, talking about the Trump indictment and the charges that have been levied by the Supreme Court of Colorado, which has refused him to participate and contest from the primary polls in Colorado, which are going to happen in January 1st week. In such a situation, why is it that America continues to stand, and particularly the Democrats who are in power, calling it a show of democracy?
Thank you, Megha. You put in a lot in this pot to stir it. I mean, essentially, you see what is happening right now. It is going to stretch and stress American electoral system and also the American legal system. Both of these systems will be stressed and stretched, because what is happening right now is unprecedented. Never in US history have their courts or the electoral system kind of, grappled with what is happening right now. So yes, the US is definitely, in a delicate situation overall with all of this which is happening right now. Now, as to the point, you see, America thinks of itself as the city on the top of the hill, the beacon for the world, etc., right? And, moralizes those thoughts and values and spreads those values and says that it stands by those values. On the other hand, very often, more than not, it's doing the opposite. So that's something which I think which is very well understood. But what is happening right now, you see, there are a couple of things. One, by the way, in the US, the electoral system is different in each state. Given the nature of the United States elections, each state has its own laws, how the ballot would be, what timeline, etc. Somewhere it's still, the paper ballot, somewhere it's electronic voting machines, what deadline for the mail-in ballots, etc. So each state has its own laws. Now, what could happen with this ruling now is, other states also where many folks are pressing on similar charges, and there are cases in other courts also in other states, those cases could get encouragement and the judges could opine similar to what, let's say, the judges in Colorado have done. So that will open up another can of worms. So I think long and short, we are going to see a lot of legal drama happening in the US with regards to Trump and as it goes. But yes, as you're saying, it's a banana. It's like bananas and bananas everywhere out there.
Okay. Rajalakshmi, a quick comment from you. Now, I am not concerned about all these theatrics playing out in America, the Democrats versus the Republicans, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, talking about the number of legal cases and indictments Donald Trump has to go through in the last election or this one, come the 2024 year in November, talking about Joe Biden and his son being indicted for a number of these closed door deals that had been cut between him and the Chinese, or for that matter, the Ukraine matter coming into being, the Russian matter coming into being. My question over here is that who are you to ride the high horse and sit at a pedestal and then talk about other countries and specifically India and calling us an autocratic nation? But because here what you're doing is essentially getting funds from George Soros, whose antecedents and the kind of activities he indulgences are notorious. Everybody knows what he does. Everybody knows he's a left liberal, and he continues to pump in money into the judicial system, pump in money into the legal entities to ensure the decision that has been taken, the judgment that has come forth against Donald Trump is the way that it has come. And then you talk about democracy. That's you are cutting off your competition. We know through the popularity charts that Donald Trump is the most popular presidential candidate we have up until now in 2023 December. So the easiest way for you to win, Democrats to win the election, would be cut off the competition, and that's exactly what you've done. Call spade a spade.
Good evening, Megha. And yes, it's a very interesting turn of events, and but it's not very surprising or shocking, I would say, because we have seen some certain incidents. Even in Manhattan, there was this case against Donald Trump, and so there have been a series of all these cases that have been coming up and which have been been put against him. So this is nothing new or surprising, very frankly. But I have always felt that our Indian system of elections is the most transparent one, and it is the most easiest one to understand, and actually people cannot manipulate it, very frankly, in spite of the fact that we do come across a lot of accusations of EVM tampering, etc., from the losing parties sometimes. But then I think that is the most transparent system, our system, and that actually is the root cause right now about this entire scenario, because that was what led to Donald Trump complaining that when he supposedly lost the presidential elections, there was this reasonable doubt in the minds of a lot of voters, and which led to this attack, I would say, on the Capitol Hill. And so now that became the root cause behind all of these cases. So I would say that actually the very first thing that comes to my mind is that our system is so transparent and their system is so confusing that it's very difficult for somebody to actually understand if you don't get into the nitty-gritties of what is happening there. So that actually is something that the US has a long way to go before they declare themselves as something like something that an example for other democracies to follow. So that is the very first thing, Megha, the very way in which the president is elected,
Right.
the very way in which this entire cabinet is elected. That's the very first thing. And then, you have this entire system of where, my previous speaker, he was talking about how every state has their own different rules and regulations. They have their own eligibility standards, and everything is
But
so complicated.
that's got nothing to do with working in an autocratic manner, because you have the power, because you are in power, because of the fact that you are the president of the country, and therefore you also have easy access to funds from somebody like George Soros. You are going to use it to your advantage. And then you're talking
Yes,
about
absolutely.
the Indian government, you're talking about Gautam Adani, and you're talking about Ambani's. So where
Absolutely.
does this George Soros scandal put you, Joe Biden, into the picture?
See, that is exactly what I'm trying to come to. That it is so easy for somebody like George Soros to completely manipulate the system, because I would just like to remind you of one thing, that Mohan Bhagwat ji had mentioned about, when he spoke about how some of these agents, especially like George Soros, they use academia and the media for something like a regime change, and that is exactly what Mr. Soros does. And he has used, and this, if you have noticed, especially during this Israel Palestine conflict, that a lot of these academic institutions, they have been, some of their heads have been making ridiculous statements. They've been making some things, some unbelievable statements. That is because, most of these academia, they are funded by people like Soros, and even the media. See, the major reason why, like I was talking about the presidential election, was because the media played a very important part in the way in which that election was run, and how it was, the results were declared, and that is the reason why people were confused. And Mr. Soros has a very important part to play in all of this, because he is very keen at manipulating all these kind of issues.
Okay, all
So,
right, fair
and
enough.
it's not just in the US.
Okay, fair enough. Wing Commander Praful Bakshi. Now, there could be two sides to the story. On one hand, we talk about whether United States of America is truly a democracy with the kind of events such as these that take place. And on the other hand, there have been statements that have been made by Joe Biden in the past when the insurrection event happened and Donald Trump was indicted. He was then the president of the country, and then the questions being asked that anybody who is wrong, even when you are holding the highest position of the country, if you are wrong and you are going to be charged against it, you are going to be indicted. So that's the epitome of being a democracy.
It's a very interesting way to look at it, Megha, because you saw what happened to Bill Clinton. You saw there are more cases also down the history of Nixon's case, and so many cases are there. In an American democracy is, of course, sort of seen from a different angle. And our system is different. There is no doubt about it. I see a vast difference between both of them. But the question is, if Americans have selected this method, then they have to live by this method. Even Donald Trump will have to live by it. And whatever the case may be, Donald Trump in this present situation, he may be trying to get the better of Soros. Let us see how he does it. Because the lot depends on it, and who all are supporting American system. How much of China is supporting and how much Russia is supporting. And they will get a lot of support indirectly if the democratic methods of Americans are very clear. Then these methods are also very clear. How they can be how can harm be inflicted on them, how the things can be diversified, how Russia can help, Putin can help Trump to come up, how they can get the China down, how can they stop Chinese activities in the Middle East. So all this thing will be there. This is part of the democratic system, Megha. And I think the Americans have lived by it. So Trump's case is very interesting. We can see, but if we are thinking that something very magical will happen, I doubt very much.
Okay.
So nothing major is going to change place, but we have to see the development in South China Sea are becoming so severe that even Biden has changed his stand against China as he's now following Trump's policy, which everybody thought he will not follow. So we see what happens to that. But Middle East, you see, Trump is there. He was. Everybody felt that Trump Israel will eat out of Israel's hand. If Trump was there, probably the stand would have been quite different. And Biden's stand is changing as the Israel is concerned.
Okay. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Obviously, we need to understand that while the stance that has been taken by these wokists, by these college students, the Ivy League professors and students coming out with these open letters in support of virtually those are the Hamas terrorists is what they at this point in time have vouched for. It's also important to know why there is a sentiment, a popular one at that, where the Biden administration has been very focal and repeatedly loyal to the Jews. One thing is to do the right thing, act the right way. And the other thing is about the huge lobby of the Jews that operates in the American political system. Okay, but that's digressing from the point. But Robinda, now should we take this development that has taken place with a pinch of salt? We have seen much more bigger explosive developments, accusations, controversies in America right at the time of elections, whether it is Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Trump, even Clinton, and the likelihood of Trump then being given a clean sheet by the Supreme Court of America in the next few weeks is something that is expected. It's likely to happen.
Thank you, Megha. I mean, yeah, it is likely, but we just don't know what all could be likely and the likelihoods. The point is, you see, there are controversies, things happen. He says something, Biden says something, etc. Those things keep happening, maybe, right? But this is a matter of law and the legal system, the judiciary, right? So it has concrete consequences. It's not something vague, not vague, it's not something intangible like your popularity and poll numbers 6 months away. This is a legal matter. And there is another matter regarding Trump, which is also up with the Supreme Court. That's the Jack Smith FBI inquiry into, denying the election or subversion of the election, right? That's a charge on that federal inquiry, in which also the prosecutor has gone to the Supreme Court because Trump is saying that he has immunity. So the prosecutor has gone to the Supreme Court and asked them to rule, does Trump have immunity in this particular case, so that the case could proceed. So that's trying to fast track. So that's one case already there. Now, this is another one which I do think that the Trump team will take to the Supreme Court. Here again, the issue is that, see, the matter of insurrection, by the way, even the lower court upheld. It said in Colorado, yes, there was an insurrection which Trump promoted or engaged in. But it said that he cannot be charged under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which would, kind of cast him out and he'll not be able to contest, make him ineligible to contest in future. That's the only thing, right?
Yeah.
So now that case has also gone to the Supreme Court. And beyond these two cases, there are another 4 cases of Trump. So in the next 1 year, in between the elections and the campaigns, he'll be having to go in and out of courts, dates, attorneys, etc. So that would take up and sap up quite some of his time and energy.
And also keep him in the news for the entire. So it could go both ways. His popularity could surge, which is already 44 versus 42 for Biden versus Biden. So.
Oh yes, and a quick thing, each time any such episode, high voltage happens, Trump benefits with it.
Absolutely.
His campaign sends out fundraising emails, they try and get money. In fact, they raise more money in these phases when such, such controversies are happening. So he monetizes it, and his base seems to agree with him. He says, look here, there's another witch hunt happening. So he just kind of washes it off.
Absolutely. And also keeping in mind how the justice system works in America and how the Supreme Court judges are then elected, and taking a look at how the judges at this point in time are appointed is the majority that has been appointed by the Trump administration when Trump was in power. So taking the case to the Supreme Court of United States of America, and the number of votes in favor of Trump are likely to be more versus those which are against it. But that's a legal, technical matter. That's a very important matter as well. But Rajalakshmi, again a scenario such as this, is there a differentiation that we can make that the mud that is slung on India every time there are domestic issues, whether it is, like I said, farmer protests or expulsion of a leader, suspension of members of the parliament, so many other things that happen. And these are domestic matters. These are matters internal to India, and therefore India has time and again gone out to the world and said we would not want and appreciate interference of international agencies or foreign bodies or countries to interfere in our matters and speak ill of the country as a democracy. So today when we sit over here and look at the joke that the American democracy has become, And this happens every 5 years when the elections are on the anvil. So, all I'm saying is that, when you have glass houses, don't throw stones on others.
Yes, very true, Megha. Mr. Sajdev was saying that, every time such a case comes up, we have seen that Mr. Trump's popularity only soars. Because, some of his own detractors have been saying that, it should not be the courts that keep him out of the presidentship. If it
Okay, there seems to be a network issue over there, but Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, would you like to continue and respond to the question?
Vega, to tell you the truth, at the moment, Trump has got his procedures absolutely taped up. He knows exactly how he's going to do it. And in case he does not appear for the election, there is his manipulations. Well, I should not use the word manipulation, but the way he'll work in favor of his party. He'll strengthen the party further. I mean, his policy is not going to change. His stand is such that there'll be a lot of support for Israel from Trump's side. There'll be a lot of support. There'll be a lot of action against South China Sea. Incidentally, let me tell you one thing. When Biden came, everybody thought that America will not send the aircraft carriers. Now Biden has come, and suddenly the whole thing changed in spite of Biden's family interest in China. That is what is because Trump's pressure was so much. So Trump's pressure will continue, whatever the case may be, whether he gets elected or he doesn't get elected.
Okay. Rubinder, a quick word from you. Now, what is the key takeaway for the world? Because I've been seeing these reports where, there were a number of these ministers and leaders from Hungary who picked up on this issue and were very critical in their opposition to the Biden administration, saying this is a hit job and they are going to start off with a campaign. So it's not as if the domestic politics is just contained within America. The whole world gets impacted to it and the whole world reacts to it because it is the power to reckon with. It is the world power. It is the #1 economy of the world.
No, very, very true, Megha. I mean, whatsoever it be, America is a superpower, and what happens in the domestic politics of America absolutely impacts the foreign policy of America. America withdrew from Vietnam, domestic matters, right? I mean, each one of these, Iraq withdrawal, the military-industrial complex would never want the wars to end. They'll be happy to keep the wars ongoing. But Americans cannot stomach body bags of their soldiers coming back, right? And that leads to domestic opinion moving away. Afghanistan, America withdrew, right, because of those its own issues. So domestic politics and America America has been kind of schizophrenic. In the earlier parts of the previous century and even now, they want to avoid any foreign entangling arrangements. They do not want any foreign entanglements. On the one hand, the publics, the mass publics, let's say, they want to be just within America and not be bothered with the world. Okay. But on the other hand, the leaderships of the United States, they know that in order for America and American economy to continue and its hegemony and its superpowerdom to continue, it has to play a role in the world affairs. It cannot withdraw it. So always what you see is a tussle between this isolationist versus being global. Now that said, the nature of the world of today, social media and all communication and all, everything is now known to every other person across the globe any minute. So we are getting to see the nuances of American domestic politics also very clearly. And more the world realizes what is going on within America. I think there are obviously, questions and doubts on the claims that America makes. But still, to a large extent, America is, amongst whatever it be, the flawed democracies, it's still a better flawed democracy. But it comes out very clearly. And the complications in this political aspect specifically are more because the nature of American presidential elections is such that all 50 states, they have their own elections. And more or less, it's sure which states are going Republican, which are going Democrat. right? The ones who are going Democrat are already known. It leaves only 4-5 states where a few thousands could
Change this.
could make the difference.
Yeah.
And this is now becoming evident. I think this is evident out there now.
Okay, all right. Rajalakshmi, a quick response from you before I wrap this up. Now, Rubinder says that, however flawed the system may be of the American polity, it is still touted to be the oldest democracy of the world, or one of the better democracies of the world. So, but do you also feel that because there is an added advantage for the Americans, or rather the West, to have been the conquerors, to have been more developed, to have an edge over the rest of the world, to become industrialized, take on wars and act on their women fancies, to be the most supreme, the white man's burden, go and fight the wars in Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam, and therefore to propagate their supremacy, then the world then would go and bow down to them and say that yes, you are a better economy, you are a better democracy, and the world must learn from you. The position seems to be changing as there are more hegemonies that are being created. One was China, which is the second largest economy of the world. There are a lot of middle income democracies that are also getting built up, India being the fifth largest economy of the world. So we have the gumption to question. I don't know, a decade ago, I wonder if any of the news channels in our country would have even having this debate, or people at this point of time would even raise the issue. They would rather be lapping it up and saying we still want to go to America, we still want to build the American dream. But is that the case now?
That's very interesting, Megha, because like you were saying, maybe a decade ago, India was very scared about all the sanctions that were put. So there were a lot of very important decisions that were changed or reversed because of the sanctions. But today we are at a position where we are like, okay, it's okay if you put up the sanctions, but we are going to look at the interests of our own people first. So that is the kind of an attitude that we have now today as a country. And we are like Modi ji always keeps talking about shedding all those colonial shackles. So, he has been talking about how we have to look into the interest of our own people first. So that I think is something that, the US was probably taken by surprise. And that is why, if you remember, they had to, at the time when we were taking oil from Russia, at that time they had to take back their sanctions, because today we are a very strategic partner of the US. So they cannot today afford to lose us as a strategic partner, and that is what has changed.
Okay.
Now, the US is the last one that should be actually sermonizing us, or giving us kind of examples about democracy, because they are the ones who gave this equal rights to women for voting. I think they were one of the last people to do that. They still were stuck with racism even in the 19th, even in the 20th century. So just imagine that all these kind of things that even though the world used to look at us as something like maybe a regressive country, an underdeveloped country, we have given equal voting rights to women right from the start. We have had women in positions of power, we have had women presidents, prime ministers, and all of that has happened. We have had people, women, empowered women. So all of that is something that I think the US has been probably learning from us. They still have to catch up with us in all those terms.
Right.
So it was just that, we probably felt that we are not actually able to stand as an equal with the US. But right now, I think that we definitely need to wake up to all these factors. And I'm happy to see this kind of a debate or a discussion, which, like you rightly pointed out, was not possible, maybe a few years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I'm out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views on this sensitive, important subject that has an impact not just in American politics but across the globe, and the changing scenarios and how the world looks at America and then starts to question as to what is it that they have been doing right in fact, what is it they have been doing wrong, and then passing it off and still then allowing themselves to be given the position that they call themselves.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.